All right, I'm here with Nova. Well, we think this is Nova. I was calling her Hazel at one point. She's only been adopted about 4 or 5 days ago, and so the guardian's not sure if she's going to keep her name. This is Nova's roadmap to success. Isn't she a good-looking girl? I told the guardian one of the first things, if she wants to change the name, a lot of times when dogs are in shelters, we don't want to change their names. A lot of times they've been in a shelter and they've had the name for 5 minutes. So if you want to change the dog's name, it's similar to the loading exercise we did. You just say, Hazel, treat, or whatever the name is you want to use, and then take a couple steps away, Hazel, treat, Hazel, treat. After a while, she's like, I hear Hazel, I look up because that means I'm about to get a treat. Yes, she's like, I'm responding to that already. All right, the first thing that I always go over is marker words. Now, I'll have a link on this page to marker words that you can go and watch. But basically, marker word is an indicator that tells the dog the thing that we want. It's the most common building block of dog training. Marker word happens, yes, she just sat down. I said yes when her bottom hit the ground. It's our way of saying you completed the action that I want. I usually would give the dog a pet or a treat following that. Now we did a loading exercise and I had the guardian walk around and say yes, give a treat, take a couple steps, yes, treat, yes, treat. I had the guardian do that with a marker word we want to do that about 6 to 8 different occasions, about 12 to 20 treats, until when you say yes, she looks up at you. That's when we know it's loaded, then we can start using the word. Now, to help her learn the word, we went over go to the dog bed, and there should be a video above on how I teach dogs to go to the dog bed. I've given the guardian a printout that she has essentially separation anxiety. The guardian thinks she has separation anxiety. She's only been here for 5 days, so it might not be. It might just be she's kind of getting comfortable in here. And hopefully that's not the case, but we went through the separation anxiety protocol that I normally do in 3 sessions all in one. So there's a lot for Nova to go over, and Nova's confidence is not as high as we'd like to see it with her. Now, I didn't go over hand targeting. We went go to the dog bed as the lesson, and there's a printout of it and a video, so I'm not going to go through that too much. But one thing I did notice is that Nova had problems sitting. That's the most basic obedience cue there is. So one of the things I like the guardian to get in a habit of doing once a day, and this would be one of the activities you can do in the sanctuary, sit, lure her into sit, yes, and pop the treat in her mouth. Now remember to use that imaginary rubber band. So if I'm luring a dog here, if I'm the dog and then I'm trying to lure the dog up, and the treat goes here, the rubber band pulls the treat back to my mouth, wherever I'm at. So I'm luring down, and the dog stops trapping, the rubber band comes back to my lips. You always want to keep the treat against their lips or about an inch away as you're luring them into a down, luring them into a sit, or whatever the case may be. Towards the end of, so I'd like the guardian to do that for maybe grab like 15 treats and walk around the whole house, probably do like about half of it in the sanctuary, but then the rest of the house, walk around, sit, lure, yes, treat. Now, make sure that you're not repeating the cue. If you say sit, she doesn't sit, don't say sit, sit, sit. That's the beauty of the marker word. If we say sit, she doesn't sit, then we just use the marker word, we lure, and then when she does sit, we say yes when her bottom hits the ground for a sit. When she arrives, if it's a come, when she drops, or whatever the cue, the desirable action is. We also went over, so I'd like you to do that until when you say sit, you don't have to lure like this. You just say sit, and she sits. Now, we were kind of doing, there's one technique where I hold a treat above a dog's head, and if the dog's staring at it, they're thinking about it. And several times we did this, we waited 20, 30, 40 seconds, then she sat down. Don't say sit, sit, sit throughout. The cue, the formula is the cue, the command word. Sit, for example. The second part is the action. The dog actually sits down. The third ping is the marker word, yes, letting her know that she did the thing we want. The fourth thing is giving her the reward. So there's 4 components: the cue, the action, the marker, and the reward. But when we're teaching a dog something, we do the first step last. We just lure the dog into a sit. I was going to say she almost stayed there by herself. Guardian left the room, she got up and followed. But we're just going to lure the dog into position until it's easy to lure. That's when we're ready to introduce the cue. And you can walk around normally, it's just for you. And so basically, eventually we get to the point where you say sit, the dog sits, you say yes, and give the dog a treat. Now the dog has the verbal response, or the verbal cue. We also went over for her recall, what doesn't seem to be all that great, we use it for cooking in the corner. The way that I do that is I hold the treat to the dog's lips, I say come as I step backwards. So when the dog arrives, I say yes and give him a treat, and then I repeat that, walking backwards around your place. This is what I call seeding the word. I hear the word, then the action is followed, and then I get a reward. And so after a while, you should be able to say, come. She runs up to you, say yes, and give her the treat. So when we're teaching a dog, we want to do something called fading the lure. So first we're holding a treat and saying, come as we step away. That's the lure. But eventually when I say come, the dog responds to that and either comes to us. Another thing that I had the guardian do is if you go like this, so I'm holding it, she's not looking at me right now. So, Nova, I lower my hand. The lower my hand goes, the more it's for the treat. She's following. See if she comes over here. So I don't have anything in my hand. And when she comes to me, now I'm not going to do it for her because she's not going to do it, but then I would normally go over the dog's head, and that a lot of times puts them into a sit. But since she's a brave girl, we're going to reward and pay that. Now, we also went over the celebrate lesson. Now, celebrate lesson is not really a separation anxiety directly, but it is a confidence building exercise because it helps the dog understand what it is we want them to do. Celebrating is basically waiting for the dog to voluntarily offer you the behavior that you want and then marking and rewarding it when you don't ask for it. So if she comes and sits down next to you, say yes and scratch her butt or under her chin. If she, yes. Now, she's not a big fan of me touching her yet. I haven't really touched her very much. She gave me a lot of cutoff signals, which we're talking about in a second. Because I haven't been trying to touch her, she feels more comfortable walking around me, where before she was kind of skedaddling through. So celebrating is just basically, it's the easiest way of training your dog. You just have to be mindful. So you're going to watch your dog, and when your dog offers you, right there, celebrate. Say yes and pet.
Yes.
She just laid down. So sits, eye contact, coming to you, laying down, going to the dog bed, dropping things. Those are things that we call desired behavior. So I want you to get in the habit of doing that. Do we have to do it all the time? No, but we want to do as much as possible because all attention for dogs is rewarding, and I want her to make it very clear to Nova what it is I need to do to get attention from my human. And we also went over the counterpart of that. I call it the manners lesson. She likes to paw for attention, which a lot of Huskies do, or nudge for attention. She might whimper or cry or bark. That's kind of her way of saying, give me some chocolate, give me some chicken nuggets. So what we want to do instead is when she does that, the guardian is going to ask her to sit one time. If she sits within 2 or 3 seconds, I'm going to say yes and pet her under her chin or wherever it is accessible. If she doesn't, I'm just going to lean back on the couch. I'm going to go back to playing a video game, watching TV, writing a song, talking to my friends, whatever it is. The more you say it, the less you mean it. And for Huskies in particular, they're very determined dogs. They're going to see, are you going to throw another treat on that dog bed? Are you going to come and ask me to pet me or whatever it is? You have to let her know that, look, I'd love to give you attention, but you have to do something to earn it. And if you don't want to earn it, that's fine. I'm not going to beg you for it. I'm on to the next thing. Playing hard to get works great for dating, works great for dog training. Once she learns that you're not going to give in, we're not being mean. We're just saying, I asked you for a sit. If you don't want to sit, that's fine. You do you. But I'm not going to reward you. Remember, half of how dogs learn is not doing the thing you want and not being rewarded. A lot of times we told the dog to sit, doesn't sit. We're like, oh, you rascal, and pet him. I got paid doing what I want to do. I have no motivation to do what you want to do. So make sure that you get in the habit of the manners lessons where she's nudging you or pawing or barking for attention. You tell her to sit once. If she does it, you say mark, yes, and pet her. If she doesn't, you go back to doing what you're doing. The other side of it is celebrating. When she chooses to sit or come or lay down or go to her dog bed, you say yes and pet her. It's going to take you about a month to get in the habit of doing so, but when you do, both of these exercises are complementary of each other. She is underweight because she's been in a shelter, and so I'd like you to change her over to structured feeding. There's a printout for that, so I'm not going to go through it in much detail, but I'd like you to basically, if she's only eating a cup twice a day, and she's only 3/4 of a cup, feed her 3/4 of a cup plus 5%. We want to feed her basically what she's eating plus just a tiny bit more. I want her to get in a habit of finishing all the food in the bowl. If she doesn't eat what's in the bowl, she leaves some empty, take the bowl, dump the empty food, and put the bowl back down. For dogs, we want them to recognize the vessel is empty. And then after a while, they recognize it's empty and it's not going to have leftover food, so I better eat all the food that's there when it's presented. It's not ethical to withhold food from a dog, but providing the dog with structure saying you're going to eat or the food's going to go away can help the dog learn I better eat when the food's available, and that can help me have more confidence in my humans, which is, again, something that's beneficial when you have a dog that has separation anxiety. Eventually, I'd like the guardian, as it talks about in the printout, I'd probably continue, you've only started feeding her a couple days, so I'd probably transition the food in the sanctuary and then keep on getting it until you feed her however much she needs to eat before you switch her over to a snuffle mat, which is outlined in one of the handouts that I left for you. And sometimes as a social leader, she seems to be like that. So you might have to eat a banana or some chips or cracker in the room with her while she's eating. Follow the instructions for structured eating, because eventually you're gradually going to start moving yourself a little bit further and further away, but you're going to do it very progressively. If she stops eating, she stops performing, she's saying, I'm overwhelmed, this is a little bit too much. Always back up to a level that's a little bit easier so she can practice that. We want her to practice success, not practicing up to failure, because then that's what the dog remembers. Remember, the last part of your practice session or your exercise is always the most important. It's much better for the dog to stop, for you to stop early and the dog want to continue, than for you to push too far and the dog get bored, doesn't want to do it. You end on a bad note, the dog won't want to do that again, and you kind of work against yourself. Also, remember, for this whole exercise for separation anxiety, this is a conditioning exercise. So she's going to dog daycare. She does not need that 45-minute walk. So I'd like to see you doing 4 out of the 10 things in the morning before you leave for work. Feeding her is one of them. Playing go to the dog bed's one of them. Stay should be one of them. And then pick 1 or 2 other things. Then when you come home from work, you want to spread those out. You're going to have more time after work to bedtime than you're going to have in the morning. So try to do them maybe once every 45 minutes. We want to spread them out. Also, every time you leave, try to find a way that you can leave until you have a stay for distance. You have to be sneaky about it, but you want to try to leave treats on the dog bed or in the sanctuary so she kind of wants to go back in there, because every time I go back in there, good stuff is there. But that's why stay for distractions is really important. You want to get up to about 20 distractions, 25 distractions before you start moving away and adding that stay for distance. Stay for distance and go to your dog bed are kind of the meat and potatoes a lot of the exercises that we're going over, because those are the ones that are going to cause the dog to go into the sanctuary. Now, I will get you an outline of the boxes and how to handle the boxes, but you have all the sheets, so make sure you go through those sheets and read through them, and anytime you have questions, message me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going well. So please don't wait. If you're a little bit confused, there's nothing wrong with being confused. Ask questions so we can fix it. One of the other exercises we did was cookie in the corner. That's when we threw the treats. Now that's something that I'd like you to do in the sanctuary, kind of in the corner where you have your dog bed. So it's going to be pretty similar to go to the dog bed. You could do it, I guess, in the other corner of your room, the exact opposite corner of where the dog bed is. We don't like to have a lot of stuff on the floor because I don't want her to get confused or to knock anything over. But again, it's just a nice scent game. We also went over the towel game. For the towel game, remember, at first we have all those treats in one pile, but eventually you can use a little bit of a thicker towel, and then you can start moving them around. So maybe like 10 pieces all over the place. And again, try to hold it or put your feet on top of it, because she's a smart Husky. She's Siberian. She's trying to dig those out or chew through the blanket. After a while, you can use a thicker blanket or a towel, and so it'll be a little bit harder for her to manipulate and get underneath it. Scent games are a really important thing. On walks, don't be afraid to have treats with you. And every time if she's sniffing, not sniffing, go to a grass area, touch her nose with the treat, make sure she's looking the direction, say, find it. Remember, the cue always comes before the action. Find it, then I throw the treat, then she licks it up. When she licks it up, I would say yes. Now, normally we don't say yes when they lick up the treat, because the action is what we're saying yes for, but for a find it game, getting the treat is the action, so we would mark that. The rest of the time you'd mark when the chest hits the ground for a down, or when the bottom hits the ground for a sit, or whatever it is. Now, her sit and her down are not that great, so I would probably make that one of the cute things you're doing in there. And you can go in there and you're in the sanctuary, sit, she sits, yes, treat, lure her into a down, she lays down, yes, treat, take a step back so she has to get back up and stand so you can repeat another sit and down. You want to get to the point where you say sit, she sits, or down, she stays down. And eventually when she lays down, you wait a half second before you say yes when she lays down, but wait a half second before you give her the treat. A lot of dogs will lay down and pop back up right away. We want her to keep that down. But laying down on her own accord is a wonderful thing. The more you reward the things you like, the more she's going to offer those particular behaviors. Let me see. Now for stay. She had some difficulty with stay. When we're saying stay like this, she got up and moved away. So I wonder if her previous guardian perhaps got frustrated with the stay, because that stop sign was a hard one for her. So we did a little bit of counter conditioning for that one. What I did is I had the guardian holding the treat to her lips, and she said stay, and then she released the treat. Hold the treat to the lips first, stay, then release the treat. She did it about, 5 or 7 times, something like that. And then after a while, then she said stay, and then yes, and gave the treat. Now, don't do it stay, yes, dilly-dally to get the treat, because she might move off again. So stay, yes, treat. Stay, yes, treat. Stay, yes. Now in a full second and a half before I give the treat. So we want to elongate those, but we also went over cutoff signals, which is kind of a little bit of this lesson. So if she turns away or doesn't want to engage with the lesson, that might be a cutoff signal, her way of saying, I don't like it. Our job then is to find a way, how can I make this into a positive or make this easier so that she enjoys doing it and we can do it again. So instead of saying stay and having her move away, we held the treat here and then said stay and then release the treat. And after a while, we said stay and gave her a treat. And eventually you should be able to say stay, chicken wing, yes, deliver the treat. Now remember, all those are 4 separate actions. A lot of people go stay, you did that, stay, yes. So those are combining things together. I want you to have very good discipline in your mechanics. So stay is its own action. I pull my hand back, I complete my movement, then I flare my elbow as my one distraction. I say yes, then I reach and deliver the treat. So those are all 4, they're all right next to each other, but they're not commingling. They're separate individual acts. Now first you're gonna say stay, just 1, but eventually you'll be stay, 1, 2, yes, treat. Stay, 1, 2, yes, treat, or whatever they are. It's not a linear process. So she might have good days or bad days. That's the case. That's fine. That's normal. Let's say that you know somebody's about to knock at your door and you're in the middle of a stay for whatever it is. Release the dog first. I don't want the dog to have any auto releases. There should be a video linked above for teaching you how to stay. I don't want you to add distance until you can have a good solid 20 distractions. Now, one of the distractions might be pulling out your phone and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just counting in my head and that's a distraction. Remember, once you get past 5 seconds of distractions, you want to start breaking eye contact because eventually we're going to move away. Now, and you can do all sorts of stuff when you're distractions. Just don't move your feet or move your position at all. So you can flare your elbow, you can twist your head, you can shimmy your shoulders, you can kind of go like this. Anything you want to do, pull out your phone and look at your phone. Just don't move away because that's the 3rd D, and you don't want to get to that one until you've consistently done the stay for distance and for distractions and duration. Now I like to do proofing with what's called the 4 out of 5 method. Whatever we're doing, if I'm doing stay, I'm going to do stay, 1, yes, treat. I'm going to repeat that 4 or 5 times in a row. When the dog can do it 4 or 5 times in a row consistently, then I'm ready to go stay, 1, 2, yes, treat. And do that 5 times in a row. The dog stays there, then I can go to the next one. Be guarding against taking too big of a step. Okay, well I was doing 1 second time, now I'm gonna say stay, and I'm gonna go to 25. And the dog gets up and moves away. We want for stay to have no auto releases. We want her to stay there completely until we release. And remember, the release is the one we were practicing with. So we're gonna do cycles. So I start the cycle by saying stay. Then I pull my arm back, I offer 1 distraction, 2 distraction, 3, whatever we're up to. I say yes, then I give the treat. I have ended that cycle. Now right away, I need to either throw the treat away, say release and throw the treat aside, or I need to say stay and do another cycle. So make sure that you're very precise with that. If you go too long, the dog gets up and gets bored and walks away. Now stay is a pretty challenging impulse control exercise. Read through the outline because what we want to practice is the majority of your practice is going to be staying there on the dog bed. Now eventually when you have stay for distance, we're going to put her in a stay on the dog bed, you're going to walk away. Now, at first what I'm doing, I might say stay, take 1 step back, walk back towards the dog, yes, and give it a treat. I didn't turn away from the dog. But eventually I want to keep on doing that until I can say stay and walk back a good 20 paces. Walk all the way back, and the dog will do that 4 out of 5 times in a row. Then when I'm going to make it more difficult, I would say stay, turn around as if I'm walking like a normal person, so I'm giving my back to the dog, take 1 pace, turn around again, come back, yes, and give the treat. And I repeat that 4 out of 5 times in a row successfully. Then I take 2 steps away. And we're going to repeat the whole process. So by stepping away and facing the dog, we're more engaging. Even though we're breaking eye contact, the dog can still see our face. We turn our back, that makes it more difficult. But we've already achieved 20 paces walking backwards, and then we go back to only 1 pace, turning with our back, and then 2 paces, turning our back, 3 paces. Eventually you make all the way to 20 paces. Dog's like, yawn, I've done this before. This is not a big deal for me. So it's a methodical process, and the whole thing with this conditioning exercise is that it is conditioning. So you need to make sure you're getting 10 of these in a day, every single day. And so read through the outlines. If you have any questions on any of them, please let me know. Trying trying to think if there's anything else that I've covered that you want that I want to go over with you. Do you have any other? Dog consent. So I will have that written above as well. So dogs do not like it when we start petting them on top of the head. She showed that she preferred being petted on her chin. When you see a dog put its nose in the air, that's kind of a good way of them saying I like something. So watch for her dog consent. Oh, I remember one other thing. So when you have friends come over, at first do this with female friends. So if I'm the dog, a lot of us, we try to think of luring the dog closer and closer to us. I want the dog to want to do it. So let's say I'm the dog and you're the friend. So the friend could be watching this video, give them the timestamp for this. Okay, so I'm Nova. I look at you, say yes as soon as you look at me, and then you throw a treat over here or over here behind me and to my side. As Nova, I turn over here and I get it. When I get it, just wait. And when I turn and look back at you, throw another treat on this side. I go and get this one, I look at you, throw a treat on this side. What you'll find is Nova will gradually start coming closer and closer back to you. You're not enticing, you're actually throwing the treat away. But she's choosing to come back to us. That's a good consent check. Now, if you're one of the friends that's watching this, I want you to ignore Nova when you first come in unless you're doing this sort of exercise. If she comes up to you, be passive. Don't move, don't try to pet her. Let her sniff you a couple of times and move away before you even think about it. When you do want to pet her, hold your hand out. Don't put it in her face, just hold your hand out a little bit. If she wants to come in and she nudges your hand, she's saying, yeah, I'm interested in little pets, then just offer a little bit underneath her chin. And eventually you'll be able to do a little bit more and a little bit more. And eventually she should be comfortable with that. Now for me, she wasn't comfortable with me touching her. So I did kind of a version of what I was talking about for the stay. I was holding a treat to her lips and I reached a little bit, I pulled back and released that treat. I did it again, I reached further and she leaned away. That's a cutoff signal. That's her way of saying, I don't like that. So I'm gonna have the video above, it's gonna talk about cutoff signals, but make sure you watch for those with yourself as well as with your friends. A lot of us, we don't realize we make the dog feel uncomfortable because we're not listening when they say, I don't want to continue. Knowing how to read these cutoff signals makes a big difference in that regard. So if she doesn't like being touched by your friend, have your friend hold a treat, move their hand slightly towards them, hopefully without her moving. If she moves, if I get to this far and the dog moves away, I pull back. Next time I would go stop short of that and then release the treat and do that one 2 or 3 times. And then I try to go a little bit more and gradually a little bit more. Eventually my hand is going all the way behind the dog, but I'm not touching. And eventually when I touch, I just touch very lightly and I'm giving the treat. And eventually I'm petting a little bit and then giving the treat. And the treats are at the lips the whole time. But eventually we want to flip it. Eventually we want to touch, then give a treat without having to hold it here. But there is nothing wrong with holding the treat there. That's a training wheels or a bridge version of it. The most important thing is that she enjoys the activity, not that we finish doing the activity fast. So if we do this right, she should actually like, when people pet me, I get a treat afterwards. After a while, petting becomes its own kind of self-reward. Now, when you're doing the celebrate game, celebrate just with pets. You don't have to give her a treat every time she sits, comes, lays down, all the rest of that stuff. When I'm doing training, I use a lot of treats. When it comes to treats, you want to use the smallest treat you can get away with, that they can usually chew in about 2 to 4 bites. We're going to give her a lot of treats. She's underweight. She could actually use a little extra weight now, but hopefully that won't be the case for long. When you're doing a lot of training, you can feed her a little bit less. When you're feeding her, she's getting a lot of food out of the boxes or the snuffle mat, then she's going to be spending more time working for her food. But again, hopefully that's helping her spend more and more time in the sanctuary, and that's our goal. What you're really looking for is you want her to you want to be sitting here watching TV and she just gets up and goes in the sanctuary because the TV is a little bit too loud. That's why I like to have a security camera in there that has a motion sensor like my Ring doorbell. So every time somebody comes to my door and says, somebody's at your door, that's what you want. You don't want to have to go and look because by the time you get up, she's going to hear you doing it. Our goal is eventually she's just going in there more and more often. So that's why every time you leave the room, as you're leaving, toss a treat or 2 on the bed quietly so she doesn't know it's there. I want her to kind of make that part of ritual. Every once in a while she chooses to go away from you. She goes in the sanctuary, something good happens. And your little Ring or your motion sensor doorbell video lets you know that happened. And eventually that's where we're going to have the tethered bully stick, we're going to have the boxes, we're going to feed her on a snuffle mat, we're going to have the lick mat, we're going to do the Kongs, all the rest of the stuff. So she's choosing to go and hang out in there. That's practicing being apart from you. That's the name of the game when you're trying to treat separation anxiety in dogs. Anything else you want me to go over?
How long should I be walking her?
For the walks, if you're not taking her to daycare, I would say maybe like a 10 or 15 minute sniff walk.
even at night as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather you're spending more of your energy in there, and using the brain or the sniffer drains a lot of energy. Now, at night, if you want to go for a little bit of a longer walk, that's great, but the walk does not help you associate and help her practice being in the sanctuary. Okay. So if it's an either or, I'd rather have that practice there because that's what you're trying to get to that goal. Yeah, but walks are great. I don't want to say we're giving up on walks, but maybe I would have maybe 2 15-minute walks a day as well as potty breaks, and then spend the rest of the time going over there practicing the things in there. Now, on all the outlines, I talk about 10 things a day in the sanctuary. If it's a weekend, you have a little extra time, do 12, 13. The more you practice, as long as it's good quality practice, the faster you're going to get to your goal. So 10 is the bare minimum, but you don't want to do it so often that she doesn't want to go in there. If you feel like you're pushing it and she's not liking it, back off a little bit. We, again, always want to end on a good note and with the dog wanting to do it versus pushing a little bit too far. Anything else?
Not that I can think of right now.
Now, you will be thinking of other things.
Yeah.
Please text me at the 402 number anytime these things come up. I'm guessing we'll probably be talking a couple times a week for the next couple of weeks. That's normal. That's what I want to have happen. So don't think you're bugging me at all. I'd rather you bug me or you call me too much or text me too much than too little. Now, if you text me and I don't get back to you within a couple hours, text me again. Sometimes I'm in sessions or I'm teaching puppy class in the evenings. But make sure you let me know. But yeah, if you don't hear from me, text me again. If you don't, or a couple times, then there's something I will be getting back to you. So, all right, Nova, puppy. Nova, look at the treats that I have here. Now she's looking at me. She's being a husky. So I'm just going to drop a treat. Now, if she won't come to me, I might toss a treat or two in between, kind of breadcrumb her towards me. And she's being a typical husky, like, nope, that's not enough for me. So now I'm just going to kind of wait a little bit now because I threw her some treats. Now she's coming, yes, getting those treats. And again, this is kind of a husky thing. They're just very deliberate. Yeah. There's nothing nefarious. I just want you to come and get some treats. There's another one right here. This is lamb. You were liking this. Well, this is my buddy Nova, maybe soon to be something else. And this is Nova's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it. And that was great. You offered and she said, nope, I'm okay. All right.